Spain plans to make it easier for newcomers to settle, the Prime Minister said, promoting migration as an effective way to protect prosperity in sharp contrast with the attitude of much of Europe. Spain needs to choose between being an open or prosperous country or a closed-off poor country, Pedro Sanchez told the parliament on Wednesday. It is as simple as that. He said migration was not just a question of humanity, but the only realistic means of growing the economy and sustaining the welfare state in a country where the birth rate was among the lowest in Europe. So you see, this Pedro Sanchez is even making it clear to them that this case is a case of growing their economy and sustaining their welfare. Yes, and it's a question of humanity and being realistic when it comes to their economy. And even Spain have the lowest birth rate in Europe. That is to tell you that Pedro Sanchez is telling them that letting migrants come in, have children that will be counted among their population in the future will help in sustaining their workforce in the nearby future and sustaining their economies. Throughout history, migration has been one of the great drivers of the development of nations, while hatred and xenophobia have been and continue to be the greatest destroyer of nations, he said. The key is in the managing it well. His remarks come as governments across Europe responded to the surge of the far right by cracking down on migration. Last month, Germany reintroduced checks at its land borders, saying it was necessary to protect against the acute dangers posed by Islamist terrorism and serious crime. While France Prime Minister Michel Barnier said recently the migration levels were often insufferable. Sweden and Finland have all announced plans to bring in new anti-immigration measures, while Italy has been accused of turning a blind eye to human rights as it hashes out deals with leaders in Libya and Tunisia to curtail arrivals. The hardening sentiment has at times pitted government against businesses eager to grow. In March, the largest company in the Netherlands voiced concern that the country's anti-immigration stance will impede its ability to attract skilled labor. You see, the far rights are not thinking in this direction, that if you want to cut migration the way they are coming, is going to seriously affect their economies, their labor force, their population as well. They don't think in that aspect. Similar concerns have been voiced in Germany. On Wednesday, Sanchez said Spain would set out on a different path instead of setting aside resources to better integrate migrants into the labor market and to reduce red tape for residence applications. Almost half of our municipalities are at risk of depopulation. You see, most of their communities are at a risk of depopulation. He said we have elderly people who need a caregiver and can't find one. Companies that are looking for programmers, technicians, bricklayers, and cannot find one. Rural schools that need children so that they don't have to close their doors. In May, the OECD cited Spain, the fastest growing economy in the EU, as an example of high rates of migration were helping to boost economic growth by plugging gaps in the labor market. Even so, the far right and increasingly the Conservative People's Party have sought to stoke fears around the migration by linking immigrants to crime. Two recent polls suggest their efforts are having an impact as respondents hinted at hardening attitudes towards migrants. Sanchez, speaking to the parliament, thanked the people of the Canary Islands for providing a daily example of humanity as the number of arrivals along one of the world's deadliest migration routes increased to more than 30,000. The number of asylum seekers, many of them fleeing conflict and political instability, was remnants of the 120,000 Spaniards who made their own desperate journeys in rickety boats decades earlier, Sanchez said. More than 2 million Spaniards immigrated during the Franco era, half of them irregularly. He said, we have to remember the odysseys of our mothers and fathers, our grandfathers and grandmothers in Latin America, in the Caribbean and Europe, and understand that our duty now, especially now, is to be that welcoming, tolerant, supportive society that they would have liked to find. So this Mr. Pedro Sanchez has made it clear in all ramifications, and he's saying that Spain is ready to do otherwise compared to what most of the countries in Europe are doing now, because Spain have the lowest birth rate in Europe. So, and most of their municipalities are depopulated. So he is already planning ahead. It's now left for people in the government and in the country to support him in this idea. Then come to African leaders. Yes, because I'm an African, that's why I will always talk about Africans in my video. Put your house in order so that when Europe's are having labor shortages, they won't be coming to your countries or be reforming their migrations to get your best to their countries to fill in their gaps. Or when they are depopulated, to welcome your people to come and have children who will now help them with promoting or for their population numbers to go up. These people are using your citizens to plan for your people to come in and have children. Children that will become part of that country, become part of that economy, so that their country won't go in, because if countries are depopulated, they can't do something about it. It might be just a matter of time. If proper measures are not taken, that country might be empty or wiped out of this might not be wiped out of this planet, but an empty country that their populations keep going down, they don't do anything about it, they risk losing it all. Yes. So African leaders, please put your house in order. It is very important, so you can retain Africans best in Africa. They can contribute their own part in terms of the bigger development or progress of Africa.